Okay, good morning, everyone. It's the morning for me. Gonna do a series of YouTube videos for the AP Lit class. Did a series of audio recordings last year, but Mr. Pfeffer, or Dr. Pfeffer, told me about a story or a study that says that seeing the teacher's face actually helps students retain the information longer than if they did not see the face of the teacher. So anyways, I decided to switch from just audio to video. It's kind of strange for me at the moment here, but I'm gonna go for it, get right into the material. It doesn't have to be perfect, probably won't be. Today just got out of the meeting with that woman Katie Costner. I'm looking to see, I can't remember. She was the one who talked to us about sexual harassment and all the laws around that. So she just got done with the faculty and staff, and now she's probably with the students. Some of you might be getting terrified by some of the stories that she's telling. She brought up an interesting thing, though, that I thought is important, because today I wanted to introduce the topic of feminism in Jane Eyre. And she talked about this concept of damaged goods, which refers to, in the olden days, this idea that if a woman wasn't a virgin when she is married, then her parents or her family didn't have to pay as much of a dowry. So it was actually an economic, economically, it was worse off for a family if they were trying to marry a daughter that wasn't technically a virgin. Why is that? It's an interesting story that goes back for ages and ages, even into the earliest texts we have in the Old Testament, and the emergence of societies that are patriarchal in nature, meaning that the lines are traced through the lineage of the males, not the females. Patriarchy comes from the Latin word pater, meaning father. But in feminist discourse, patriarchy is examined very closely and critiqued, and so we're going to do a little bit of that. And I think that Jane Eyre is important because she was one of the Charlotte Bronte was one of the first women writers to actually try to expose the intricacies of the power structure of the patriarchy. We see that immediately with her trials and tribulations at Gateshead and then in Lowood, and to some extent her trouble in her relationship with Rochester. So all of these situations in the novel are great for bringing up the discussion of feminism. So some important terms to know for feminism is this idea of, well, first of all, what is feminism? And I'll read to you what a basic definition is. It's a discourse that involves various movements, theories, and philosophies which are concerned with the issue of gender difference, advocate equality for women, and campaign for women's rights and interests. Also, feminism is very concerned with the difference in marginalization of women, which is very pervasive in certain cultural climates. Again, feminism is a discourse, like a conversation that goes on, involving various movements, theories, and philosophies, and they're all concerned with issues of gender difference. They all advocate equality for women, and they all campaign in one way or another for women's rights and interests. Does Jane Eyre check off in those boxes? I think if you were to hunt around, it wouldn't be hard to find textual evidence that suggests that Jane Eyre fits the category of feminist. The next term that is important to know is this idea of the patriarchy. I mentioned it a minute ago. The patriarchy is the structuring of society on the basis of family units where fathers have primary responsibility for the welfare of, hence the authority of their families. The concept of patriarchy is often used by extension in anthropology and feminism, for example, to refer to the expectation that men take primary responsibility for the welfare of the community as a whole, acting as representatives via public office. So the patriarchy not only refers to this idea of being the man of the house, I have a say what happens under my roof because I am the patriarch, but anthropologists and feminists pointed out that this sort of male authoritarianism extends over into the political sphere, and in many communities, men are looked to make the important decisions, to act in the public office. And indeed, that's true. Has there been a woman president yet? No. Are women as prevalent in public office? More so than earlier in the 1900s. It was unheard of. Were women even allowed to vote for a long time? No. So the idea of patriarchy is something that begins in the household and extends into the politics of a particular community. The next thing that's important to know is that when talking about patriarchy, feminists point out how it's the patriarchy that is responsible to some degree or to a great degree for the marginalization of women. In other words, patriarchy does not allow for women to hold their full status as human beings with the same rights, privileges, and opportunities as men.